Well, I had come to London because my wife had lived here for years, so it was part of the deal when we got married that I would come here. And I told Ethan Iverson that I was doing that. He said, "Oh, you got to look up Martin Speake." I started looking at the listings and uh, found that he was playing somewhere. I forget. He was playing
It's
with
like
a house band.
yeah, like in somewhere like Shepherd's Bush around that area, I think,
Yeah,
West London. Somewhere.
I had no idea how to get anywhere at that time, but somehow I made it, and so I introduced myself, and I think you were like, "Well, you want to play next week or something like that." you, you were up for playing, so
Yeah, I mean, it's nice having that connection with Ethan Iverson, who we'd both played with a
hmm
lot. And I remember I went to Banff Centre of the Arts, which was this sort of summer school, jazz summer school in 1990. And I kept in touch with Ethan for a while after that, and also a few other people, a saxophone player called Tony Malaby. And I remember Tony Malaby, who Jeff played with, sent me a letter. People, Ethan and Tony both wrote letters then. It was wonderful in the post, it was fantastic. And Tony was saying, "Oh, I just moved to New York. I see these great gigs, and then one of the best gigs I've seen is Joe Lovano and Jeff Williams duo." Do you remember that gig? I don't
yeah,
know.
I have some of it on tape. Have you ever heard that?
No, I've never heard it. No,
Yeah.
and I remember Tony, and I think that was probably the first time I'd heard of you, heard
Okay.
your name
Right.
via him. So actually, Jeff, it was so lovely to meet him. But you were actually, well, I suppose we were both unknown quantities to each other, weren't we? We
Right.
don't think we knew
Right.
each other's music or playing. But I'm so up for playing all the time that I probably did say, let's play next week. And from what I remember, we played duo. Yeah, mate, did we play duo then? Because we probably haven't played duo since
I think.
then, have we? Until now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember.
That I don't remember. I remember playing at the Royal Academy with Barry Green and Callum Gorley.
Oh, okay. Maybe we didn't play duo then. We played trio sometimes, I think, maybe with Dave Green or different
Yeah,
people.
we did that. Uh huh.
And recorded, recorded, I recorded a couple of albums with Barry Green, just mentioned Dave Green and Jeff, called Generations. And we've just done basically loads of gigs over the years now with my
Yes.
different projects, and we just recorded 2 other albums prior to this, prior to today's recording. Recorded an album with my music with Mike Outram and Callum Gourlay, and then Ornette Coleman music with Callum and
Yeah.
Alison Corley.
Those coming out.
I don't know what I'm going to do with them.
Great.
I need advice from
Yeah.
the world to what to do about putting music out these days.
That's very, very difficult. I'm having the same problem. Yeah. People don't have CD players anymore. So then, okay, LPs. Well, maybe, but just any sort of physical manifestation seems like a lost cause, unless it's almost like you used to be able to sell CDs or LPs on gigs, but now you're probably better off selling T-shirts at gigs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
I
don't
mean,
know.
for me, Spotify was like the downfall of it all. The whole streaming issue. I mean, okay, people can hear our music easily anywhere in the world, but it's a whole income that musicians used to really rely on. CD sales, before that, record sales, and that's changed everything dramatically. I mean, I think there are younger musicians who know how to deal with this, but I mean, the younger musicians didn't have the previous experience of CDs, selling CDs. I mean, I know some people still do CDs. I have to say, still some people still make them.
The problem is you end up with a lot of them in your house piling up, right?
Yeah, I've got a wardrobe through, and I don't know what I don't know what I feel bad throwing them away. I don't know what to
It's
do.
actually pollution.
Well, there's that because there's
Yeah.
so much plastic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
So I need the answer to that as well.
And LPs are probably worse. I mean, well,
For
same thing,
pollution.
petroleum involved and
There must be
vinyl.
an eco way of making an album. That would be even more expensive.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the what's happened is it's. I would say, from what people say, that people do buy vinyl. It's a little bit of a niche thing, but then the production of that is very expensive. Where the production of CDs is actually cheap, really. Right from the beginning, that was very cheap. £1 a copy to make or something. But actually, now the production of vinyl, which is probably where I would go with any of these releases, that's what I would like to do. But I grew up on that, and it's the idea of playing a record and listening to the whole record and turning it over. I love that feeling, and it's great that some people are still into it. But it's relatively prohibitive to do that. How many am I going to print? How am I going to post those out? Right?
It's just
You can't. I don't know. You see what I mean is that there are a lot of stumbling blocks to actually getting the music out in the way it used to be released, which is much more straightforward. And I suppose there is an age thing for me, like I'm not that interested in social media or dealing with all of that, whereas much younger generations, many of the people I teach have grown up with that way of doing things. It's like second nature. It's part of the way they live, and some of them are very good at promoting their music with those platforms, and I find that challenging. I'm not interested. I mean, you were the same with that, or what do you feel about all that?
well, I mean, no, I like to listen to high quality sound, if I'm going to listen to something. So to stream it, well, I don't even do that. I mean, I don't have Spotify or anything. Do you?
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, I mean, that's also an interesting point you're kind of leading on to there. The music's all compressed now.
yeah.
The sound that people are listening to is not real. It's not real, basically. It's not real. But
Well,
people
you
have
could
got
argue
used to
that it's never recorded sound has never been real.
That's true.
Yeah.
A gig is real, isn't it? You go to see music in a room.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the closest hearing real music. But yeah, that's true. It's all synthetic in a way, isn't it? It's all
Yeah.
from machines.
There's an argument about, digital versus analog, or an LP versus a CD. And some people say, if you're listening to LPs, you're going backwards.
For
It's
sound
not
quality.
as good, yeah. And some people say the opposite.
Yeah. I don't actually know.
Well, I like to listen to
answer.
LPs. There's something about this thing going around. It has a better effect musically, vibrationally or something. It draws
it
me
does.
in more.
I think it does, yeah.
Well, for me, I prefer that. I mean, I came up at a time when, you never saw a small group jazz, you never saw music on stage. When I first started working with Stan Getz, I was just expected to know what the repertoire was, even though some of it I didn't know, because we were playing Chick Corea tunes that I guess, he took into Chick took into the first edition of Return to Forever, but he had made a record with Stan called Captain Marvel, so we were playing that music in addition to some standards. So I remember I got the test pressing of that and listened to the tune, and that was it. But the piano players, and we had 3 different ones, when they came on the band, Stan would say, okay, you can have the music on stage for one night. Because Stan had a photographic memory. He didn't understand that people needed a little time to get to know the music. He was amazing. So I've always felt weird having, my attention on the music, on the page, because I feel like people have come to see us play, and it's like, you don't even know the music you're playing? I'm paying for this? Come on. That's kind of unrealistic if you're playing original music that you've maybe rehearsed once and want to present. But I mean, that's one of the problems too, is we don't get to play with regularity enough to really digest what we're playing. So that's one thing. Another thing is improvising from nothing is like the title of your movie, right? Leaping into the void. And that's, I don't know how it is for you, but it's letting your mind go blank and just throwing something out, seeing where it lands and allowing it to tell you what to do next, rather than, oh, what am I going to do now? And no thinking. That's how it is for me.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, I agree. When the conscious mind gets too involved, it can be problematic.
Yeah.
Exactly what I agree with Jeff. It's like I mean, I think for us and people who've been playing a long time, there's enough to draw on. It's all there. It's all in the subconscious, and we can manipulate it, or what, things just happen and we respond to each other. I mean, for me, duos it's the perfect thing. The bigger the band, the more problematic. It's not problematic, but it's you're interacting with more people. Everyone's got very strong personalities who I play with, which is what I want. It's great. I don't want people who follow all the time. People. I'm very lucky to play with wonderful musicians who can lead and accompany and have ideas. And so duo, and particularly with Jeff. I mean, Jeff and I don't play duo a lot, but we've played a lot since he's been in this country in various projects of mine, and it always feels comfortable to me. So that it's not like, oh, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? What's Jeff going to do? It's like, it doesn't matter what. Something's going to happen. Something always happens when I play with Jeff. It's very inspiring for me. And that's not the case with everybody. So I can rely on that happening. I can rely on being inspired when I'm with Jeff. The other things you were saying about me, which is also, I kind of resonate with what Jeff was saying, because I write music, and you've been here when we've done recording. In fact, I brought music in that nobody had seen before as well, but I don't write complicated music, particularly complicated. It's normally one page. It's not through composed. It's not for me. So I want to get off the page as quickly as possible. And Jeff was talking about another time then, when he played with Stan Getz. We're talking 50 years ago now, aren't we, practically?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you could go into it more than me, you know more about it than me, but even when I was younger, there were more gigs. Basically, there was more places to play, do more gigs, and so I've been in bands that memorise music. You know, there was a band Itchy Fingers. There was no question of us reading on stage. There was a saxophone quartet, and that was complex music. But we did enough gigs for that to be embedded. That's the thing. And I have really good memories of Jeff and a guitar player, Mike Outram, who I love playing with. We did a trio tour once, and it was 3 weeks back to back, and that's very unusual for anyone, apart from Chick Corea and Pat Metheny probably. But to do that back to back, and we played the same music pretty much every night with no music. And Mike Outram's great because he wants to get off the page as quickly as possible. He'd rather screw the music up than read it. You know, you understand what I'm saying? He's so great with that. So that was a very great experience and very positive tour in lots of ways. And it also, the issue of playing the same music every night I thought was great as well. I remember those stories of people telling me about Elvin Jones and just playing the same 10 tunes, or John Coltrane probably playing the 10, 15 tunes.
My favourite thing is 10,000 times.
Yeah, like 300 gigs a year, and he's playing the same tunes. There's something to be said.
And
Miles.
Miles too. Yeah.
Of course, all those really important bands. So it's a different time. It is a different time now, and there are challenges to actually to memorising music as a band, I think. But I am, for me, I don't want to tell you what other people should do, but for me, 2 pages of music, that's almost too much. Occasionally I have it on 2 pages, but one page is I just want to get off the page and people improvise together. Might be different for each piece.
Yeah.
As soon as I get too conscious, then if I'm thinking too much, even thinking like, what's Jeff doing? Oh, I'm going to play with it. Even then, it's problematic.
It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone in the next second. So it's kind of like surfing, maybe, catching a wave, and then the wave runs out, and then you try to catch another wave, you know.
Yeah. It's a good way.
I'm not visualizing it. I'm just blank, I think. I mean, I'm just responding to sound and maybe the shape of the music and what the right sound is for the next moment without thinking, just being able to go to it spontaneously. Doesn't always work, but then you can't have that feeling, you know, where you're judging yourself, like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that, and then, or that was great, and no opinion also.
Yeah, that's important. And I think in this situation with Jeff, I know it's all going to be fine. It doesn't matter what I do, really. It's going to make it sound good. It's going to be fine.
But a lot of it's just sound, like, you know? You know, looking for the right sound in the moment.
Yeah.
Texture, shape, proportion, having a sense, at least of where you've been, if not where you're going. So the composition is revealing itself and giving you something like form, which you can then work with. But again, not, oh, I'm going to construct, you know. Again, you don't have time to think. But it's sort of like remembering how it started out and developed and maybe where it is now and where it might want to go. So it's a conversation, really, right?
Yeah.
Like similar to what we're doing right now. And try to be coherent.
There's less variables, aren't there? I mean, it's obviously it's more intimate.
There's more space.
Yeah, there's more space. I mean, if I take you just take a quartet, there's ever such a lot going on in what you would call a jazz quartet. So much going on. If I play with my quartet with Mike and Jeff and Callan, and so you're responding to more than one person and you're interacting with more than one person at a time, and you can choose, maybe for me, maybe I do this, choose to interact with one person for a bit, then another like Callum's bass note might send me off somewhere, or what he's doing, or the rhythmic thing, and then Jeff's thing might send me somewhere else, and then Mike's got something, it's like, if I stop and think too much though, that's too much stuff, right, to really think about. It's still the same thing, but it's on a different level. It's another responding in the moment, still just responding spontaneously, trying to respond spontaneously and have a conversation again, but it's with more people. It's an incredible thing when you think about it. The question is a very simple question you're asking, and I'm just thinking, wow, it's actually mind-blowing playing this music, really.
Well, unless you're playing a role.
Yeah.
Right. In a sort of conventional sense, the bass and drums are the accompanying foundation for the saxophone, let's say, and the piano is also providing a framework for the saxophone player, if there's a piano player, and those, there are different ways of that. There's a way in which that can be rigidly defined, like this is your role, and then there's another way as the music has progressed, and really, it was that way in early New Orleans music. There weren't soloists really, particularly. The horn players would play off of each other and like counterpoint, And so it became more like that, let's say, with Miles' groups and with Coltrane's group. Everyone found their place, but it was much more interactive.
Yeah.
And I think that's, while we're not playing exactly that style, I think we're influenced by that.
Yeah.
That way of dealing with the music.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that because I teach a lot and I talk about these things with students, that sometimes people want to get straight into the interaction thing. I'm sure I was like that, rather than, hold on a minute, you're a bass player, let's sort the role out first.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with trying to play like Oscar Peterson's trio. That's part of the tradition of the music. Ray Brown and Ed Thigpen and Oscar, they had real prescribed roles.
Absolutely.
In the music.
Yeah.
And the music sounded great because of it. Right. It's some incredible music. And just right, it's the development of music from after that. I suppose their 50s really onwards, but that's when it's 60s started changing more, and it's more interaction, for a better word. Or the roles of the instruments changing a little bit, or a lot, changing a great deal. And so there's a whole historical perspective to all of this music, and of course where we are in life, we're influenced by that perspective if we've done a lot of listening. Some people stop listening and just, I'm going to just listen to Oscar Peterson. That's fair enough, right? Or I'm just going to listen to Hank Mobley or someone, you know. But I know Jeff and I have listened to a lot of music, and that's really important to me in this situation, because we can pretty much draw on anything.
Yeah.
In the history of the music, in the way people play, you know, what's been contributed to the music. And that's important to me in this situation.
Yeah.
But it's good to have a role in the music as well. I mean, in a way, we're still, there were still roles going on.
We still do that, yeah.
I mean, even in the duo.
Yeah.
But and the nature of the instruments, there is a limitation to the instruments as well.
It's almost like you can gesture to different aspects without going fully into a bag, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's because I think we know that, which is, it's unspoken. There's quite a lot of unspoken, which is the best way, you know. It's like, if we've got to talk about music all day long and try and get something happening, it's playing with the wrong people.
Yeah, that didn't happen with our forebears either.
No, and you've got experience of all those situations where the
They don't say
band gets
anything,
taught
or
much about music.
or they start yelling at you if they don't like what you're doing. You know, I mean that.
Yeah, you have to do your own work.
Yeah,
It's like,
you're supposed to know what to do.
yeah. But you probably had, I mean, tell me, you know, you would have had help and encouragement and some pointers from people, right? Or not? Nothing really specific?
One of my great stories is when I was 15, you know, I'd kind of grown up knowing Clark Terry, he was a good friend of my mother's, and I'm sure I've told you this.
Yeah. I like hearing it again.
And so he's playing in this club, and we go see him, my mother and I, and then my mother says, "Clark, you really should hear my son play drums," you know, and he said, "Okay, well, we'll bring him up next set." So I had never done what's known as trading, you know, 4s and 8s and that sort of thing. So it comes, I don't remember the tune, but I think it was a blues, and it comes to the trading, and Clark plays 4 bars, and I'm thinking, if I'm thinking at all, yeah, it's jazz, right? I can just take 8 bars right here, you know. So I take 8 bars, and that screws up the form. And so we get through this somehow and go back to the table, and Clark is standing behind me, and my mother's all happy. And he starts doing this with my shoulders like he's giving me a massage, except he's digging it. It's becoming so painful. Like, what is he doing? And I'm trying to keep smiling and like it's all good, and then just at the point when I think I can't stand the pain, he whispers in my ear, "When I give you 4, you take 4." And so that's how, and you never forget these things because there was pain involved too, you know. You'll never do that again, right? But other than that, no. I mean, yeah, you're supposed to feather the bass drum, or, you know, or at least learn how to do that. That informs your feel and so on and so forth. Little things like that. But I mainly learned from watching people, watching great drummers and great musicians, and listening to records, and, you know. And then you have these opportunities to play with people, especially when you're new in town. when I first went to New York and started making a little noise, then once Stan Getz hired me, then he sort of validated my ability, and then everyone started calling, and then you're old news, and then you have to reinvent yourself or do something after a decade or so of that. But you never get a second chance to make a first impression and all that. So in some cases, I was 22 and pretty green, and opinions were formed about me on that basis, and you can't change that, right? With some people.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably happened to me as well, thinking about it in a different experience. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting that I think people's first impressions, unless they're very open, they often stick. We're probably all guilty of that to a certain extent.
Absolutely. You hear somebody once, like one tune in a club or something, you're like, nah.
Yeah.
And
they just had a shit night, This recording, because we've just done it's this duo recording, that I've probably been thinking on and off for a while I should do that, and it's just moving to Portugal, something like very soon. So it's like I've got him right at the last minute.
Yeah, it's not like I'll never be here again, but
it's just there is a break, though, isn't there? I mean, there's a new change for you, and
huge.
so I don't know whether I thought about it like that too much, but this seems right. It's one of those. I'll just go with this. Just record now. It feels right. Great. Just listened back to a bit. So it sounds fine. So I'm really pleased we've done it.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah.